I was sitting at my ex's engagement party wearing a dress I picked too carefully, pretending I wasn't still healing. His fiancée stood up in front of 100 guests, glass raised, all smiles. Then she said it. He left her because she couldn't satisfy him. Some people laughed. Others tried not to. I sat there frozen. Then her mother chuckled loud enough for everyone to hear. Women like her don't deserve love. They break men. I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. I just looked at the server walking past, handed him a small velvet box, and said quietly, "Give this to the bride." He hesitated. I smiled. "She'll know it's from me." Inside the box was a folded letter. On the outside, it said, "Open me if you think you know him." She opened it, she read it, and then she ran out of her own engagement party. Everyone turned to look at me. I didn't move. Because the truth? I didn't ruin her night. I gave her a chance to escape. When the engagement invitation arrived, I stared at it for a long time. My first instinct was to laugh, then rip it in half. But I didn't. I turned the envelope over in my hands like it would explain itself. "Nathan Aldridge and Brielle Danton request the honor of your presence." It was thick cardstock, expensive, pretentious, just like them. The gold foil lettering felt like it was taunting me, like it knew the years I'd lost, trying to fix a man who never wanted to be fixed. My name was printed at the bottom under Guests of Distinction. A cruel joke, considering how Nathan had treated me like a secret for most of our 7-year relationship. I tossed the envelope on the kitchen counter and went straight to my room, not to cry, but to think. Because even though I'd been slowly putting my life back together, I hadn't been given the one thing I needed more than anything: closure. Nathan had ghosted me before proposing to Brielle. No warning, no goodbye, just silence. A month later, their engagement photos were all over Instagram. I only found out we'd broken up when I saw him kneeling on a pier, holding a ring I helped him design. For me. I told myself I was over it. I told myself I didn't care. But when I looked in the mirror that day, I could see the tightness in my jaw, the kind that only came when I was holding back more than I could carry. I didn't tell anyone about the invitation for a few days, not even my best friend. Eventually, I showed it to the only person I trusted to give me the truth straight, Uncle Ray. He wasn't really my uncle. He was my dad's best friend, but he'd stepped in when my father passed and never stepped back. He looked at the invite, then looked at me. "You gonna go?" he asked, like it wasn't a loaded question. I shrugged. Why would I put myself through that? He leaned back in his chair and gave me that smile he always gave when he was about to say something that would stick. Sometimes closure doesn't come in a pretty package. Sometimes it shows up wearing a tux and giving a speech full of lies. Maybe you're not going for him. Maybe you're going for you. I thought about it all night. The next morning, I opened the drawer where I kept things I wasn't ready to throw away. There it was, a small velvet jewelry box. Inside wasn't a ring, but something more dangerous. A letter I wrote months ago. I never sent it. I told myself it was beneath me. But now, holding it again, it didn't feel like revenge. It felt like truth, waiting for the right moment. So I RSVP'd yes. The night of the party, I wore a black silk dress with thin straps and a slit up the leg. It was elegant but not loud, not attention-seeking. I wore it because it made me feel powerful. I straightened my curls, did my makeup the way I used to before Nathan started criticizing the way I looked. No fake smile, no pretending. The venue was a country club outside Charleston. Classic, overpriced, and bland. Marble floors, a live string quartet, servers in white gloves. Every detail screamed money and performance. I walked in alone, clutching the small box in my purse. Uncle Ray had offered to come with me, but I told him I needed to do this by myself. He just kissed my forehead and said, "Call me if you need a getaway car." As I stepped inside, heads turned. A few people recognized me. Some didn't. I saw Nathan before he saw me. Tall, polished, rehearsed. He had always been good at pretending. Brielle was beside him, stunning in a silver gown, her hand wrapped possessively around his arm. They looked perfect, like a magazine cover, but I'd lived behind that image. I knew what perfection was hiding. The music played. Guests laughed. Waiters passed champagne and tiny hors d'oeuvres on glass trays. I stayed near the back, quiet, observant. I could feel the weight of eyes glancing at me. I didn't belong here, but I also didn't care. I wasn't here for them. I was here to witness the story unfold. For an hour, I said nothing. I didn't approach anyone. I watched. I listened. Nathan glanced my way once. Just once. His face didn't change, but his posture stiffened. He didn't come over. I didn't expect him to. Cowards rarely do. Then the room dimmed slightly and a chime rang out to signal the speeches. I felt my heart shift. Not race, not panic, just shift. Like something was about to happen that I wouldn't be able to undo. I reached into my purse and touched the velvet box, pressing my fingers against it to remind myself I still had a choice. I could say nothing, or I could tell the truth. The first few speeches were harmless. A bridesmaid told a half-funny story about how Brielle once canceled a date because the guy wore Crocs. Laughter scattered across the room. Then Nathan's younger brother gave a generic toast, praising Nathan for his ambition and tenacity, as if those were synonyms for loyalty. I stood near the bar, sipping water. I didn't want champagne. I needed clarity. Then Brielle stepped forward. She stood beneath a canopy of white roses, her fingers curled around a crystal flute of champagne. Every head turned. A hush settled. She looked breathtaking, the kind of beautiful that made people want to believe everything she said. I had to remind myself how people like her learn to weaponize elegance. "I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight," she began. Her voice was soft but carried. "Nathan and I are so grateful. It means the world to celebrate with the people we love." I watched her eyes scan the room like she was choosing her next line carefully. And then I saw it. The smirk. The one that meant something more was coming. She turned toward Nathan and smiled at him, then turned back to the crowd. "When Nathan and I started dating, he was still in recovery mode," she said, laughing softly. "From a relationship that, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly fulfilling." The room stirred. A few people laughed. My heart tightened, but I didn't move. Brielle continued, her voice sugary. "He told me once that he stayed with her because he thought she might change. But eventually, he realized some women just don't know how to satisfy a man. Emotionally, physically, in any way that counts." This time, the laughter wasn't scattered. It was louder, sharper. I felt the eyes again, darting toward me and then quickly away. I clenched my glass tighter. My jaw locked, but I didn't break. And then her mother, Veronica Danton in her floor-length navy gown, sitting like royalty in the front row, leaned toward her table mates and said just loud enough, "Women like her don't deserve love. They drain good men. It's in their nature." I heard it. Everyone near me did too. I didn't react. I didn't blink. I stood there and swallowed the rising burn in my throat. Uncle Ray had always told me, "You don't win by stooping. You win by standing." So I stood. Inside my purse, the velvet box pressed against my hip like a dare. I reached for it. My fingers curled around it slowly, calmly. My heart wasn't racing. It was focused. A server passed by, tall, in a black vest and bow tie. He carried a tray of empty glasses. I stepped into his path. "Hi," I said, my voice steady. "Can you do me a favor?" He paused, polite but cautious. "Sure, ma'am." I pulled the box from my purse and handed it to him. "Give this to the bride, please." He looked down at it, then back at me. "May I tell her who it's from?" "Yes," I said, meeting his eyes. "Tell her it's from the woman who couldn't satisfy him." He hesitated, confused. I nodded. "It'll make sense." He gave a slow nod and took the box carefully, like it might break. Then he disappeared into the sea of sequins and suits. The next few seconds stretched longer than they should have. I watched him walk toward Brielle, watched her turn and see him coming. Her face was glowing, still mid-laugh. He handed her the box, said something quietly. Her smile faltered just a little, like a thread pulled loose. She turned it in her hands, frowning at the tag. "Open me if you think you know him." I knew she'd read it out loud. She couldn't help herself. She liked the spotlight too much. She laughed at first, holding it up like a party trick. "Looks like I got a gift," she announced. "From his ex." People chuckled awkwardly. Nathan looked like he wanted to melt through the floor. Then Brielle opened the box. Inside was a folded letter and a small USB drive. The letter was handwritten in black ink, clean lines, no emotion on the surface. But every sentence had weight. She started reading aloud. At first, her tone was mocking. Let's see what the poor little X has to say. Then she read a line that made her stop. She read another. Her voice lowered. The crowd was still now, uncomfortably still. She didn't finish the letter. Her hand started to shake. She skipped to the bottom and pulled out the flash drive. She looked at Nathan, her face drained of color. "What is this?" she demanded. He didn't answer. "Did you message her while we were together?" Nathan looked around like he was searching for an escape route. "Did you tell her you missed her body while you were in bed with me?" Someone gasped. Veronica stood up. "Brielle, not here." But Brielle was trembling. Her voice cracked. "Did you tell her she was your real soulmate?" The crowd turned. Silence fell like a curtain. She looked at the letter again, her eyes widened. Then she turned and ran, out of her own engagement party. People stared after her. And then, slowly, all eyes turned to me. I didn't move. I didn't need to. Because I hadn't thrown a fit. I hadn't yelled or screamed. I had just told the truth, and the truth spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. When Brielle ran out, the air in the room didn't just change, it collapsed. Conversation stopped. Champagne flutes stayed suspended mid-air. Laughter had frozen in people's throats. It was the sound of something shattering, something that couldn't be taped back together with a laugh and another toast. Nathan stood alone now, his arm still slightly outstretched, as if trying to grab something already gone. His mouth opened, but no words came out. I watched him struggle to choose between defending himself or pretending none of it mattered. He had always been indecisive when it came to truth. Veronica tried to follow Brielle, but the crowd was too thick. People had stopped pretending. They whispered openly now. About the letter, about me, about him. He looked around the room, expecting someone to step in, to save face for him, to pretend they hadn't just watched his entire performance unravel. No one moved. I stood at the edge of the chaos, the weight of silence holding me in place. The velvet box was gone, but what it carried had just been unwrapped in front of an audience that would never forget. For a long second, I wondered if I'd gone too far. I wondered if this moment would be the one I regretted, not because it wasn't deserved, but because I wasn't sure if I wanted to be remembered for this, for revenge, for humiliation. But then I remembered the night Nathan told me I was lucky he stayed as long as he did, that I was good enough for now, but never someone he saw in his forever. I remembered the days I stopped eating because I couldn't keep his attention and thought it was my fault. I remembered the time I spent crying into my mother's lap trying to explain why I felt like a stranger in my own body, because he made me feel like I wasn't worthy of love unless it came with a warning label. Number, I hadn't gone too far. I had gone just far enough to make sure the next woman he lied to wouldn't stay blind. So I moved, slowly, purposefully, through the maze of stunned guests and untouched dessert tables, toward the exit. As I passed Nathan, he reached out. "Calla?" he said, barely above a whisper. I stopped. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you do this? I never thought you'd sink this low." I turned toward him, meeting his eyes. For the first time in years, I wasn't intimidated by him. "I didn't do this to you, Nathan," I said clearly. "You did this to yourself. I just handed her the mirror." He looked around again, desperate now. "This was supposed to be my night." "And you chose to make it about me," I said. "You let your fiancée and her mother drag my name in front of a room full of strangers. I didn't come here to start anything, but I wasn't going to let you finish the story with a lie." He shook his head. "You don't get to rewrite the past." "I didn't rewrite anything," I said. "I documented it." I turned and walked away before he could speak again. Every step felt like cutting another thread that had tied me to his world. Every whisper I heard as I passed felt less like judgment and more like confirmation that I had done the right thing, that silence would have been complicity. At the entrance, Uncle Ray was already waiting outside. He leaned against his truck, arms crossed, that same easy smirk on his face, like he had known exactly how it would go down. "Took you long enough," he said. I smiled for the first time that night, a real smile. "Had to make sure the message was delivered," I said. He opened the door for me. "Well, consider it signed, sealed, and detonated." We drove in silence for a while, the kind that feels earned. I watched the lights of the country club fade in the rearview mirror. After a few minutes, he asked, "You okay?" I thought about that. Not if I was happy, not if I was proud, but if I was okay. And surprisingly, I was. "I think I am," I said. "I think for the first time in a long time, I'm actually okay." He nodded. Then it was worth it. I leaned my head back against the seat, watching the road stretch out in front of us. I didn't know where I was heading next, but I knew I wasn't looking over my shoulder anymore. I had walked through fire and didn't come out bitter. I came out free. And that box, that letter, it wasn't revenge. It was the truth. And sometimes the truth needs a stage, a spotlight, and an audience. By the time I got home that night, my phone was already buzzing nonstop. Missed calls, messages, screenshots, most of them from people I hadn't heard from in months, some pretending they just wanted to check in, others asking directly what was in the letter. I didn't answer any of them. I put my phone on silent, took off my shoes, and stood barefoot in the hallway. My reflection in the hallway mirror didn't look shaken. I looked taller, not physically, but like I took up more space. Like something heavy had finally been lifted. I walked into my kitchen, poured a glass of water, and just stood there, breathing, not crying, not shaking, just still. The next morning, I woke up to over a dozen tags on social media. One of them was a photo someone had taken of Brielle as she stormed out of the venue. The caption was smug and snide. "When your fiancé's ex brings the receipts." I didn't repost it. I didn't comment. I didn't need to. I had said everything I needed to in that letter. Every word had been chosen with care, not just to hurt, but to reveal. Because I had nothing left to hide, and Nathan had built his whole life on hiding. The letter began with the truth. I told Brielle that Nathan had started messaging me again just 3 weeks after their engagement announcement. He said he missed me. He said he wasn't sure if he was making the right choice. I had screenshots. I printed them in full and attached them with the letter. He told me things about Brielle, private, cruel things, that she wasn't exciting, that he had to pretend to be in love because her family had money and connections, that he wished I would make a scene so he'd have an excuse to leave her. I never did. I just wrote everything down. I included the text where he told me he needed variety and had only stayed with me out of comfort. And then the one right after that where he said, "But I still dream about you sometimes, the version of you before you got needy." The USB I included had something more powerful than words. Audio clips from our old couples therapy sessions. I had asked for copies when I left. I never planned to use them, but I never deleted them either. One clip was especially clear. The therapist asked him directly why he always avoided responsibility when we argued. Nathan laughed and said, "Because it's easier to gaslight her than apologize. It's not like she'll leave." When Brielle read that line, I saw it break her. Not just because of what it said about me, but because of what it revealed about her. She had become me. The woman he thought would never leave. I knew what that felt like. I had lived it. I wasn't going to let her walk into the same trap with her eyes closed. People at the party told me later that Brielle ran straight to the parking lot and ripped her earrings out before getting in her car, that Veronica chased her down, trying to calm her, but Brielle pushed her away and said, "You let him humiliate me." I didn't revel in any of it. It wasn't satisfying the way I thought it might be. It just felt like clarity, like justice that had taken its time arriving. Nathan tried to call me. Twice. He left a voicemail the next day, his voice tight and controlled. He said, "You ruined everything. You could have just moved on, but you had to make it about you." I didn't respond. I didn't save the voicemail either. I deleted it, not out of spite, but because it no longer mattered what he thought. His voice didn't hold power anymore. A week later, Brielle deleted every photo of Nathan from her Instagram. Her bio changed from bride-to-be to a single quote. "Thank you for the red flags. I use them to build a runway." I don't know if she'll ever thank me. I don't need her to. I didn't do it for that. I didn't write that letter for vengeance or applause. I wrote it because I had carried that truth for too long, and I was tired of protecting the reputation of the man who broke me. The party was supposed to be Nathan's big moment, the clean start, the perfect illusion. But the moment he let Brielle mock me in public, He tore off his own mask. And when I handed her the letter, I didn't explode his life. I just stopped helping him lie. The fallout was his. The truth was mine. And in the end, it didn't matter if people believed me or not, because she did. A few days after the engagement party, I walked into my favorite cafe and ordered the same drink I always did. The barista, a girl with kind eyes and pink braids, handed it to me with a quiet smile. She didn't say anything, but I could tell she had seen the posts. Maybe she didn't know all the details. Maybe she didn't need to. She just looked at me like she knew something had changed, and it had. I wasn't the same person I had been a week ago, or a month ago, or any of the years I spent loving a man who thought love was something you earned by staying quiet. That letter wasn't revenge. It wasn't about bitterness. It was about putting the truth back in my own hands. For so long, I had let Nathan control the story. He painted me as the emotional ex, the one who just couldn't let go. He made me feel like I was impossible to love, like I was broken. But when I wrote that letter, I didn't write it for him. I wrote it for the girl I used to be, the one who stayed silent when he called her dramatic, when he blamed her for his cheating, when he said she was lucky anyone put up with her at all. I wanted her to know she hadn't imagined it. The gaslighting, the manipulation, the shame, that wasn't weakness. It was the result of trying to love someone who only loved control. And I wanted Brielle to know what she was walking into before it was too late. Maybe she hated me in that moment. Maybe she still does. But I would rather be hated for telling the truth than stay quiet while someone else gets destroyed the way I did. Uncle Ray called the next day. He didn't ask questions. He didn't pry. He just said, "You did what you had to do. Now go live like it's over." So I started doing exactly that. I went back to the gym I'd been avoiding. I answered emails I had let pile up. I opened the sketchbook that had been sitting untouched for months and began to draw again. Not for work, not for anyone else, just for me. I changed my phone number. I blocked Nathan. I deleted the photos I had saved for too long, the ones I used to scroll through when I wanted to feel something, even if it hurt. I stopped needing them. One afternoon, while cleaning out a drawer, I found the journal entry I had written the day after he left me. I had scribbled it in the middle of the night, my handwriting shaky and small. It said, "I feel like I'm disappearing, like I only exist when he wants me to." I read it once, folded it in half, and burned it in the kitchen sink. That girl who wrote it wasn't me anymore. She had survived, and she had spoken up. She had made herself visible again, fully, loudly, unapologetically. People think healing looks like forgiveness, and sometimes it does. But other times, healing looks like choosing yourself without guilt. It looks like drawing a line and saying, "You don't get to cross this anymore." A week later, I posted one photo to my social media. No caption, just me, standing barefoot on the beach, wearing an old hoodie and smiling into the wind. The ocean behind me was calm, wide, free. It got more likes than anything I'd ever posted, but that didn't matter. What mattered was that I felt whole when I took it. Sometimes we wait for closure like it's something someone else owes us. A conversation, an apology, a final explanation. But closure doesn't come from them. It comes from the moment you decide their version of the story no longer defines you. Nathan wanted to bury the truth. Brielle wanted a fantasy. I had lived the reality, and when I shared it, I didn't just reclaim my voice. I let go of the weight that came with silence. I'm not bitter. I'm not broken. I'm not the girl who waited for him to change. I am the woman who walked into a room full of people who tried to erase her and left without needing to explain herself. That's not revenge. That's power. If this story hits something deep for you, take a second to like the video. It tells me this kind of truth matters. And if you've ever been in a situation where someone tried to rewrite your story, drop a comment below. I read every one. You're not alone. Share this with someone who might need a little reminder of their worth. Sometimes a story is more than just entertainment. It's a mirror. And if you want more real stories like this, raw, honest, and unapologetically human, subscribe to the channel. We're building something powerful here, one truth at a time. Thanks for watching. And remember, your silence doesn't protect you. Your voice does.